Thanks, everybody. The book's actually called Double Double. The company name is Back Pocket COO, but thank you, Reza. I appreciate it. Reza asked me to do 2 different talks while I was here. The one that I'm doing tomorrow has absolutely nothing to do with the content that I'm going to be presenting now. The content that I'm doing tomorrow is on how to turn your company into a magnet for great employees. So really how to turn your company into one of the best places to work. The content that I'm doing today is the talk of mine that is on TED. Before I dive into the content, I just want to get a quick poll from the audience. I'm going to read out a list of traits that describe entrepreneurs. And if you hear 5 of these traits that describe you, I'd like you to stand up. Do you often feel filled with energy? Are you flooded with ideas? Are you driven? Are you restless? Are you unable to sleep or to sit still? That's 5. Are you often working on little sleep? Do you often get euphoric? Do you get easily irritated by minor obstacles? Do you burn out periodically? Do you act out sexually? Do you feel persecuted by those who do not accept your vision? Just look around the room really quickly. Those traits do describe entrepreneurs, but those are actually the list of clinical diagnosed traits for bipolar disorder. I'm going to launch into some of the content that I did because I've got a countdown clock. And by the way, can we get the countdown clock? Oh, this is already counting. This is great. If you have attention deficit disorder like I do, this countdown clock is really distracting. Kids have dreams. As children, we had dreams, but we need to nurture those dreams. What happens in the school system in society is we tend to crush them. Entrepreneurs know how to make dreams happen. Our role, I believe our role, is to no longer crush the dreams of the entrepreneurial children, but to nurture them and to try to raise the entrepreneurial children and turn them into entrepreneurs. We have to teach kids to fish and not keep giving them the fish. We have to teach them to take control. We often teach kids to go after the good jobs, but God forbid we ever wanted to be an entrepreneur because that was an evil thing and we'd become profit-centric and that was kind of pushed away. We were told that as kids we could become actors and models and artists and hockey players or basketball players, and that was cool, but God forbid we ever wanted to be an entrepreneur because that was a bad thing. I talked to a woman today from Charlotte, Lori, who ran a school project making money at school, and the project that she built made about a couple $1,000s, and the principal took that money and kept it for the school, and it was her little business that she'd built and run at the school. We crushed students. And then God forbid you wanted to be an entrepreneur and you were told you had to go to business school to get an MBA, where they're actually grooming you to be middle managers for corporations. We really need to take kids that have the entrepreneurial traits and teach them to be entrepreneurial. Even in classic literature, there's only one book I've ever found where the entrepreneur is the hero, and it's Atlas Shrugged. We should all read that. Johnny, I need you to be clapping. The opportunity, again, is to show kids that they can aspire to be entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs have attention deficit disorder. I call it ADOS, attention deficit, oh shiny. As a child, I was constantly told, pay attention, sit still, stop selling stuff to the other kids. Stop talking so much, they're listening to you. Sit down. I can't. I'm not wired that way. I'm not wired like the rest of you. I'm wired like the rest of us. But I was always told I would fail. At everything I would fail. Every report card, he's not gonna be successful. He needs to pay attention. I fucking hated paying attention. I can't pay attention. I can't even talk. People talk about whether or not an entrepreneur is nurture or nature. Right? Are you born with those traits or can you be taught? I believe it's both. I believe that you can actually identify the entrepreneurial traits in children and you can groom kids to be entrepreneurs. I'm walking proof. I was told from a very young age that having a job was a bad deal. I was told that being an entrepreneur was good, and now my brother and sister and I all own our own companies. My dad owned his own company, and both my grandfathers owned their own companies as well. We were groomed to be entrepreneurs. I'm going to walk you through some of the lessons that I learned in about 10 or 12 different entrepreneurial ventures that I had in grade school and show you how if you can get kids who have the entrepreneurial traits just to do little business ventures, they can learn some of the traits and skills that we need as entrepreneurs. As a 7-year-old, I would go collecting coat hangers from the houses in the neighborhood and then call up all the dry cleaners out of the Yellow Pages and get them to pay me the most amount of money for coat hangers. You could actually return them and get 2 to 2.5 cents a coat hanger. I negotiated one of them up to 3.5 cents. So I learned how to negotiate, and I learned that little increments can make a big deal. I learned by selling license plate protectors door to door as a 9-year-old how to handle objections or rejection, and how to cold call, and how to kind of keep knocking on doors, and every no was just one step closer to a yes. But 9-year-olds aren't learning that right now unless you encourage it. As a 10 and 11-year-old, I did comic book arbitrage at our cottage. I would buy comics and round up old comics from the kids, and I would take them up to where all the rich kids lived and sell them to them for 3 times what I was paying for them. So I learned how to buy low, sell high. I also learned to not reveal your source of where you're buying the stuff, because one of the rich kids found out I was paying a lot less and he beat me up one day. So you never tell them where your factory in China is. I made pin cushions out of, I made little rocking chairs out of pin cushions and had little cushions made on them that you could kind of poke your pins in, and I sold these door to door, and I realized after trying to sell this one color that no one was buying it, so I painted them in 2 different colors, beige and brown, and then the option wasn't yes or no, it was do you want the brown one or the beige one. I did that as an 11 or 12-year-old. As a kid, I started cutting lawns, and I realized that manual labor sucked. But I realized that recurring revenue was a good thing. If I could land a client and keep going back every week, that was good, because I only had to sell them once, but I had that money stream always coming through. I learned that hourly work was really, really a bad deal. I would buy pop and take it up to our community clubhouse at the cottage and sell it to all the women, the senior citizens that were playing bridge on Wednesday nights. But what I would do is go into the bridge club at the early part of the summer and tell them I would do this every Wednesday, so I kind of locked them up on this emotional agreement so no other kids could take my little contract. There was no written contract, it was an emotional contract that I'd made with them. And then I realized that because I was actually running to the store and bringing it back, they would pay me additional value for that service. They weren't paying for the pop, they were paying for someone to do the additional work. I learned by collecting golf balls that you could sell things in different ways. I would go into the ponds and pull out thousands of golf balls over a week, and then take all the golf balls and wash them all and then sort them into 3 piles. I'd take the Pinnacles and DDHs, which were the most kind of favored golf balls back in the early 80s, and I would sell those for a really high price. Then I'd take all the middle range ones and sell them, and all the ones that were kind of crappy, I'd bag them all up and sell them for $5 for 100 balls that you could use them for practice. And you learn that as a child. These are ways to market your different products and different services. And you're not taught this in school, because God forbid, our teachers have never run companies. How could they possibly teach kids to be entrepreneurs? I learned in high school when I was trying to sell sunglasses to all the kids, and the school shut me down again, that you needed multiple channels. To try to sell sunglasses direct to all the kids was painstaking. And when I got told I wasn't allowed to sell them at school anymore, I went to all the gas stations in the city and I gave them case lots of sunglasses, and I split the profit with them. So then they were doing all the sales and I was making the money. And I was 14 or 15 years old when I did that. I learned not to waste money. I remember one time when I was about 10, we were in Banff, Alberta, and I threw a penny out into the middle of the road. And my dad made me walk out in the middle of traffic and pick it up. And when I came back over, he said, I worked too goddamn hard for my money to see you waste one single penny. And I learned that lesson as a child, and I still to this day will pick up a penny regardless of where I am, because I worked too hard for it. Allowances are a really, really stupid thing to give kids. We've heard a couple people talk about allowances being a bad thing. I wasn't given an allowance, but I was given the opportunity to make as much money around the house as I wanted to by finding things that needed to get done and then negotiating the price. So my parents wouldn't give me the list and a price. They would say, there's stuff around here. Here's a whole bunch of stuff we see. You tell us what else you see, and then we'd negotiate. I'd say, I want $3 to take out the garbage for the week. My dad would be like, $3? Forget it. I'll give you $1. No, wait, not $1. How about $1.40? And we kind of settle on a price. So as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, I started to learn how to actually negotiate, which is a valuable skill as an entrepreneur. I learned how to spot opportunities to make money. Like Magic Johnson was talking about, you learn how to see the market and then sell stuff into that marketplace. Instead of a kid getting that normal allowance coming at them, they learn to spot it. They learn how to negotiate everything. Right now, I have my children set up with 2 bank accounts. 50% of all the money they come in goes into one bank account, which they save for their house. The other 50% of all their money goes in their toy account, and they can buy anything they want with it. But they're learning at a young age to save some of their money instead of what most kids are doing today and 30, 40-year-olds, which is spending everything. That's why the economy's in trouble and North America's in trouble, is we've all spent way beyond our means. So we have to teach kids to be more like businesses. Imagine if we could get Governor Davis or any of the governors in California now to learn how to run this place like a business instead of screwing it up like they've done. It's not the 8th biggest economy, it's the 8th biggest disaster right now. We need to teach children the skills of entrepreneurs. Get them to think on their feet. Instead of reading kids a story every night, how about once a week, give them 3 different items and get them to stand up in front of you and tell a story that includes those 3 items, like a green piece of paper and a water jug and a countdown clock that's distracting. And then have them stand up in front of you and learn how to speak in front of others and how to make up stuff as they go and get creative. And those are skills that we need as entrepreneurs to think on our feet and to stand in front of others. Teach kids what bad customer service looks like. When you're out at places, show them what good customer service is and show them what bad customer service is. You can look around at some of the entrepreneurial traits that we have to nurture in our children. The attainment, tenacity, leadership, sales, introspection, networking, handling failure, bootstrapping, customer service. Introspection, the one in the middle, is critical. People need to start looking at themselves and seeing the contribution they're having to the problem instead of blaming others. As entrepreneurs, we're good at that. We can't blame anybody else. We need to teach that skill to children as well so they can actually build companies or become more self-sufficient. They're not going to be able to rely on government for the jobs. This is a little bit of a complicated one. Don't medicate the kids. I think if you're really severe with ADD or bipolar, medication can make sense. But 10% of kids in North America right now are being diagnosed with ADD and ADHD. 10%? There's no way that 10%, that's not a disease. That's a normal trait if 10% have it. God, there's only 3% of the population are redheads. That's the disease. So if you've got ADD, teach kids how to leverage ADD. I have 17 of the 18 traits of ADD. My girlfriend and I were debating, and she's correct. I think I used to say 18 out of 19, but I didn't read the whole test, so I don't know how many I really had. I'm definitely bipolar. I definitely have clear signs of mania and clear signs of stress. I've often had times when I'll be home in the middle of a day on a Tuesday with a blanket over my head, just waiting to kind of get through the next 3 hours. But then 3 hours later, I think I'm going to take over the world again. And as entrepreneurs, we've all been there. But we don't need to have that medicated out of us. What we need to do is learn how to work with that. Instead of telling kids that they're not going to do well, why don't we teach them how to do well with those signs? You look at the traits that you can see in kids. If we can teach them to problem solve, teach them to lead others, teach them about the desire to make their own money. Not to be money hungry, but the desire to make their own money. It's not a bad thing. Teach them about public speaking. Get the confidence up in them. Teach them to ask questions and to learn from mistakes and how to sell and never give up. How to be creative and how to save money. How to ask for help. How to see solutions. You think about in school, we're always taught that the right answer is in the back of the textbook. That's crap. In the business world, we don't have a textbook. There is no right answer. So what we do is we seek collaboration from everybody, and we all kind of help each other out. The only way I could get through high school and college was to seek collaboration from everybody. I had to cheat on practically every exam to get out. And I'm not proud of it, but I can pretty much guarantee that half of the people in this room had to cheat to get through school too. And I'm not saying that that's what we want to groom in our children, but we don't have to groom in our children that the right answer is in the back of the textbook and that collaboration is a bad thing. The crowdsourcing and the idea of working with people in a team is how you build companies, and we need to teach kids how to do that. I'm going to leave you with a video that I hope will inspire you to remember that as kids we have dreams, and as adults our opportunity now is to no longer crush them, but to help kids challenge or take their dreams and build companies around those. This is a video that was created by a client of mine, David Hauser at Grasshopper. I taught David at MIT about 4 years ago. His wife actually was the first writer that I worked with on helping me edit parts of my book. This is the video that David did, and hopefully it inspires you to help raise kids as entrepreneurs as well. I think as entrepreneurs, we also have an obligation to thank the people who help us get to where we are. The idea for my TED Talk, and also me uncovering what I do, which is helping entrepreneurs make their dreams happen, the idea came to me by working with Simon Sinek, who's going to be speaking later on this afternoon. Simon gave me the idea for this TED Talk because he helped me uncover it. Simon, thank you for helping me change the world as well. Thanks for having me.